So we'll get started. And just to give you guys a quick, brief background on igus, we'll start off there. So igus was founded in 1964 in Germany, originally starting in Germany. So we've now grown to be in over 35 countries worldwide with thousands of employees working for us. But more specifically here in the US, we were founded in 1985, and recently we completed an 80,000 square foot expansion of our facility in East Providence, Rhode Island. We're now able to hold several million different components worth of stock to be able to ship same day or within 72 hours or less. Including all the employees that work at the warehouse themselves, we have about 120 direct igus sales employees working inside and in outside sales, as well as our product support team, being myself and others who specialize working with particular products from igus. igus being a company that specializes in creating polymers, we typically always start with is our base polymer, and from there we work adding fibers and filaments to reinforce the material that we've created, and we introduce a solid lubricant such as Teflon or silicone to the compound, and this provides a product that is dry running and is maintenance free, which is what we pride ourselves on here at igus. Now, the particular tool that we're going to be discussing today in all of igus's tools, the data that we use, it's actually comes from our test lab. It's actually one of the largest in the industry out of any of our competitors. I would probably say by far our lab is one of the largest. We've been running this since 1985, and the data that we use for our expert systems online is proven time and time again to provide accurate data and results to provide lifetime calculations for our parts. igus is split up into several different divisions, providing a multitude of products. Our dry tech division is where lead screws are included, specifically in the drylin product line, but we also provide bearings, bar stock to make custom parts. We provide Zyros ball bearings, and today we're going to be discussing the lead screws, which we have a multitude of different products that we can provide to customers, from our high helix lead screws, which is specifically called Dryspin, which we'll talk about on the next slide. We provide Acme lead screws as well as trapezoidal, which some engineers in the US happen to know as metric Acme. There's little to no difference between the two different types of screws, Acme and trapezoidal, other than 1 degree difference in angle of the thread. Acme being 29 degrees and trapezoidal being 30. So other than that, there really aren't too many differences between the two products. But we also supply lead screw nuts that have been machined from bar stock, as well as parts that have been injection molded for high volume projects. We can provide customers with nuts that help reduce clearance in a system. So we have anti-backlash and zero backlash products. And we also have a plethora of different accessories that we provide that are good for applications such as end blocks, whether it be with a ball bearing or a plain bearing. We have shaft lock collars all the way to motors and controllers for those motors as well. So we have a lot of different products to use, and a lot of these items are a part of our configurator that we have that is used to calculate the life cycle of these nuts. Moving on, just to kind of give you a little background on what Dryspin is, I mentioned it before. It's an item that is in the expert system calculator, and it's good to just have a little background on why it's different. From our competitors' parts, they do supply high helix lead screws as well, but what I really think separates our product from others is what makes it different. So one of the things that we did with Dryspin, we made it a more efficient lead screw. And we did this by optimizing the thread angle, by flattening it out. It makes the screw more efficient. By doing this, we also worked with the geometry of the thread. And instead of it being more of a trapezoid shape, like it would be with Acme or trapezoidal lead screws, we actually rounded off the profile of the thread. And this reduces noise, it reduces vibration, and both of those things also help with extending the life of the nut itself. And then on top of that, one of the things that we did, we took the symmetrical thread profile geometry of a trapezoidal lead screw and we made it asymmetric instead. So the lead screw material to the nut material actually has 30% more material in between the threads. So the wear rate, there's just much more material there to use during its lifetime. Now we'll move into the tool itself. When you go to igus.com, You'll see the ribbon at the top. For shops, the configurator, product information, and solutions, all you have to do is hover over to the configurator tab, and you'll see linear technology. When you hover over that, you'll then see drylin Leadscrew product finder. That is what you're going to click on, and your landing page will be over here on the right, the Leadscrew modules expert. So this is our calculator that we've taken all the data from several decades worth of testing in our lab. And that is what is put into this piece of software that we have online for everyone's disposal. So when you come to the landing page of the expert system, you have the ability to make a lot of different changes here. So you can calculate your application, the nut's lifetime by looking at a cylindrical nut, and then we have the different types of cylindrical nuts that we offer. You can toggle for a flange, and again, the different types of flange nuts that we provide. So if you need a zero backlash nut, or if you want to use one of the radial preload nuts, you can select between those different products. For customers, the majority of which that use this calculator, they don't really have a good idea of what they want to use just yet for their application, or sometimes they just want to move to a plastic part instead of using maybe a bronze nut. So maybe they'll stick with what they already have, and they can then select that specifically through the thread size here. But again, for those that don't know about our products and what we have to offer, you can generally leave this as thread size all. And that'll take a look at everything that we have to offer, and it'll give you the best part for your application. And that's what's so good about this tool. So we're just going to work with all, and we'll move on from here. So if you do need something specific, you can toggle to this here. You can also select the lead screw material. igus supplies our lead screws standard is 304 stainless steel, but we do also provide aluminum screws for low weight or non-magnetic applications. And we also have carbon steel as well for customers that don't necessarily need a stainless steel for corrosion or chemical resistance. Now, moving on to the next screen, this is where you're actually going to define your application parameters. So for specialty applications, you can move to this right here where we have low moisture absorption, where we're going to provide you a material that won't absorb water as quickly as others. Or you have a high temperature application, or for our customers in the food packaging industry, they might need FDA compliance. You can select all those options here. And you can also designate whether or not the material of the nut is going to come in contact with any particular chemicals as well. And this is a very, very long list that you can run through, and you can select these different materials, chemicals on this list here, and it will basically kick out any materials that won't work with those chemicals. So that's a pretty good aspect of the tool. And it also adjusts the lifetime of the material that it's recommending to you based on those chemicals that are present in the application. Now here, the lead screw bearing, this is just referring to the supports that you're using for the application. So for example, a loose or a fixed loose. Typically, the majority of applications that I work with, customers have a fixed scenario. The majority of applications that I see tend to be higher speed applications. We do work with some positioning applications as well, quite a bit, especially with the packaging industry. But for a fixed scenario, that's typically where you're using end supports that have ball bearings in them. So moving on here, you have your parameters. This is actually going to be your load, speed, duty cycle, and stroke, which are the only things that you need to calculate the lifetime of a nut with igus. And I think this is probably by far the simplest tool to use that we have, and that is why I love it so much. So here you're going to be putting in your dynamic axial force, and this is probably the most important thing that we need because of PV value when we're talking about polymers. PV is going to be the most important thing, so the load when it's actually in use and moving. The majority of our parts that we have in our catalog, all of them come showing the static axial load capacity, and that is just standard in our catalog. But the dynamic force is more important because the higher the load and the higher the speed, it's going to change the way that our materials wear. So we need to have an accurate figure here. So for example, let's just say it's 200 newtons and the stroke of the application is 250 millimeters. Here you're going to be putting in your feed rate. And this is basically your meters per minute. Or if you want to use an imperial measuring system, you can do that as well. You can actually go up to the system of units up here, and you can change that to imperial if you want to. And it'll show itself in feet per minute instead of meters per minute. So let's just say it's 1.5 meters per minute, and your operating time is only about 25%. Now the operating time, it's good to keep this in mind that this is referring to time or percentage per hour that the application will be in motion. And this is very, very important when we're calculating the actual lifetime of a nut. The higher the operating time per hour, the less cycles that the nut can see. So when we are working with a polymer, we want to keep in mind that friction creates heat. So when we're in motion, the heat is what's actually causing the material to wear, which is why when we're working with 100%, it's very hard to work in those environments and get long life because it's constantly running and not giving the material an ability to cool down. So when you move on to the next screen, this is actually going to provide to you a master list of results. And you can basically sort this through all of these different choices up here. So if you want to see what is going to provide you the absolute highest number of life cycles, you can click on this, or again, vice versa for the lowest number. If it says not applicable, that means the data is just not in there for this particular combination of material and lead screw material for the screw. You can sort this by the torque. So for example, if you already have a motor spec'd into your application and you know that you can't hit 1.5 Newton meters in torque, you can sort this to take a look at what would actually work with the motor that you have. You can sort it by the diameter as well. And the nice part about this list, it's descending, and you can sort this. So if you wanted to sort it through the diameter, it would then go down from the largest to the smallest. And as you can see, as you go down, cycles go up and down as well, depending on the combination of lead screw material and nut material. And based on what you select here, so for example, right now we have 20 by 20. So this is a 20 millimeter diameter screw and a 20 millimeter lead. And this is a J200 lead screw nut material paired with an aluminum screw. That will actually populate down here as well. So it shows you what particular nut you had. At the beginning of the expert system, you were able to select the particular part that you wanted to configure your application with, and that shows up here on this screen. As you can see here, again, we have that J200 nut, 20 by 20. It shows you the basic dimensions of that part. It shows you the lead screw that you have selected. For example, we had a 250 millimeter stroke, so you can see here, this is based on 300, so the specs that we provide on our lead screw. So for example, helix deviation, or better known as lead accuracy, we're accurate to 0.1 millimeters per 300 millimeters of lead screw. Or with straightness, 0.3 millimeters per 300 millimeters of lead screw. You can download all of this information as a PDF report directly from the page as well. And this will just populate on your screen for you. You can drag and drop that onto your desktop and save it for later. But basically all that information that you had put into the expert system will then populate here on this PDF for you. And you can continue to change this as well. So if you're not set on any particular combination of lead screw and nut material, you can change that and say, hey, you know what? We might not actually need 1.5 million cycles. You know, maybe we need something less, and you can buy a smaller part and save yourself some money. Or if you want the part to last longer, you can bump it up in size, in diameter, or reduce the lead or increase the lead. And it's good to save all that, because then you don't have to go back and do this all again. But the report details everything that you had in that expert system. So, you know, your load, the speed, the duty cycle, the stroke, what you selected back at the beginning. So you can see here we took a Dryspin high helix thread lead screw, hence why yes is checked off. But for the thread size, we had all selected. If you changed and went to something specific at the beginning, it would show that here. If you picked any chemicals, it would put that on the PDF sheet as well. So it's really helpful that you can download that directly from the website. Now, moving on back to the presentation itself, some particular areas that you might find our lead screws in, it's just about everywhere. Any industry that you can think of from the food service industry. This particular application here on the right, this is a light tower fixture used for an oil field, a book scanner. 3D printers is a big industry for us, as well as the medical industry for lab equipment. igus is used just about everywhere. In all of these applications, the majority of time, we ran the application information that we've received from our customers through the expert system online. So it's a wonderful tool. It tells you when you're going to need to change out the nut that you've bought from us, and it's predictable, and that's the best part about this tool. It tells you when you need to replace a part, not when you need to maintain it. igus has a multitude of different tools that we provide, not just the Leadscrew product finder. We have product finders for just about every part that we make, and that's the best part about our products. They have a predictable lifetime. So it's a wonderful tool to use online. It's obviously very simple to use. You can find my contact information here. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them out. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the training. And we're going to be doing another training next month in July on our lead screw configurator. And that is basically how you create a custom lead screw directly through igus's website, and you can order it directly through the website as well. And that'll be in July. Thank you everybody for joining. Have a good afternoon.